Hi folks, this is a part 2 discussion of Island, so if you haven't seen the first part, make sure to go ahead and watch it.
There'll be a link in the description.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Eric.
And this is In Other Works. So there's a lot to break down philosophically about Island, whether or not we agree with it being a utopia or not. And here's my immediate first point against Island being a utopia. Its art sucks.
You don't think Oedipus with a happy ending is a good idea?
No! So at some point, I don't remember how it comes up, but Will brings up Oedipus Rex and how, it all ends with Oedipus stabbing his eyes out and his mother committing suicide. And Mary Sargini's like, what? Oedipus has a happy ending? And he's like, what? And it's like, yeah, Oedipus and Paula.
Yeah.
Like, there's a Polynese person that's like there to like push the ideology of Paula to make it...
To let him understand that, he was defending himself when he killed his father, and he didn't know it was his father, so he shouldn't feel guilty about that. And when he slept with his mother, he didn't know his mother was his mother, and now that he does, they can stop sleeping together, but he shouldn't feel bad about it because he had no idea.
It is hilarious reading this in the book. I don't think that's what Huxley was intending, though.
No.
But it's so just... When you write fiction, when you write a story, you don't hit people over the head with your ideology. Like, I mean, you can, but like, what I mean is like, you don't do what this does.
No. And yeah, that doesn't work. It doesn't work because, like, who would want to watch that play?
Yeah.
Where's the tension? Where's the, yeah, and that doesn't work. I think one of the other key things that doesn't work, and this is the only spoiler that we can possibly give in this book, and which is how it ends.
It kind of ends with the utopia falling apart because no one planned for this.
Yeah, that dictator from the neighboring island that we talked about invades to put the Raj in power as basically his puppet, but also as an absolute ruler. And he's announcing over a loudspeaker as they invade what he's going to do to turn Paula around and make it modern society.
Make Paula great again.
And Mappa. And then we find out that the military has gone off to kill the doctor character. And then basically thing about creating as a utopia is if you don't convince everybody to be part of that utopia, it cannot be sustained.
Which I don't get how it can be a utopia if it's not a sustainable thing that like plans for things to go wrong.
I mean, maybe this book isn't exactly his utopia. Maybe like this is his utopian society, but one of the things that needs to be done is you need to convince everyone of that society for that society to work.
That's not feasible.
That's not feasible. No.
No. I think this also all goes back down to the weird thing of like a monarchist system and a utopian society. I don't think that's a possible merger.
So that's part of the thing about he wanted to build his utopian society in a realistic world. So he has this whole situation where a monarch kind of created this. It's like the whole utopian society is basically combining Buddhism with science and not advancing for the sake of advancement, but using technology only when you know it'll actually benefit society, which I think is an interesting idea. But I think his ideal government for that wouldn't necessarily be a constitutional monarchy. I think that was just how he built the world for this novel.
If you want to build a utopia, you gotta dissolve the monarchy.
Yeah, but I think this is Aldous Huxley's Utopia.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of the characters in his world are thinking, we live in a utopia. Like, I think they're just thinking, what's the best way we can govern ourselves? Yeah. And this is what they've come up with.
But there's immediate problem of like, well, everything I've done, my heirs can screw it up, and lo and behold, it happens. And I think with the society he's trying to build, of like trying to build the best possible society, maybe he would have like kept it so he stays in power for his life, but I think he would have...
I think one of the things that this book makes clear is that utopias don't make humans perfect.
No.
So humans have faults. So even this leader who had the insight to create this better society with the help of this doctor who cured him and all that, they're not necessarily going to have the foresight to know that, oh, we got to dissolve the monarchy or this is going to be an issue.
That's a pretty big oversight. That's, you got to almost try to overlook it purposefully, I think, like willfully overlook that, which maybe he did. And that's
so
sort of
one thing I would point out, though, is let's say the grandfather had dissolved the monarchy.
Yeah.
And they had a pretty good democratic system, not like our representative democracy, but like a more all-inclusive democratic system.
I don't even think you need that. I feel like...
Anyway, doesn't matter, but let me just make my point. We come to the end of the book. How would that end differ? They're still an island with oil resources that people want, with no military, and a dictator next door. The fact that he had a puppet to use makes things a little bit easier, but I think the book still ends the same way without the monarchy.
Actually, having a puppet probably ends things better for the people, because not having a puppet just probably means that it would have been a massacre.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It almost feels like they're building an anarchist system with a king, which that's the total opposite.
I feel like at the beginning of the book, the Raj tells Will that it's a constitutional monarchy, but one where the monarch actually has power.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's the only person on the island who thinks the monarch actually has power. I think that's part of the reason no one was particularly concerned about him becoming Raj, because they didn't actually think he would be able to make any changes. And I mean, they were definitely wrong, and wrong for reasons that they probably didn't even predict, but they just didn't seem at all concerned with it. And I wonder if it's like a part of the Buddhist ideal about it. Like, yeah, when the dictatorship's going to come in and force us to do things, but like if we persevere with our philosophy, we'll eventually triumph over that. It's hard to say, because the book does very suddenly end with the invasion, right? Like you don't get a sense of what...
There's no aftermath. There's not even the math. But one of the other things, though, I want to talk about, though, that is really interesting is there's very subtle differences, which makes it really interesting, though, how actually thin the line is, I think, between Huxley's Utopia and Dystopia. There is a lot of similar ways in which the things work between Brave New World and Island.
For example?
Well, we were giving this whole discussion about drugs, you know. Obviously, it's a very different kind of drug, but soma.
Oh, yeah.
You were saying how everyone takes hallucinogens in Island to, like, develop a more thought-provoking understanding of things. They're not addicted to it, but they take it occasionally, and it's like this sort of key factor of the society. Whereas Brave New World, to not feel like they're living in a literal hellscape that they're living in, take a drug and are just hopelessly addicted to it.
And I mean, it's probably the exact opposite drug. Like, soma keeps the blinders on, right? Like, hides reality from you, whereas the moksha medicine
expands reality.
Yeah.
And then also, as you were talking about earlier, it's like they're both very sexual societies, but like one is about making it sort of like an apathetic thing where like you don't care for the people you're sleeping with, really. It's just like,
you don't form attachments.
You don't form attachments or anything, and it's isolating. Despite having sleeping with everyone, it's a very isolating life. And whereas then you take Island, and it's like just having a deep understanding of you and the people around you. And it's almost like just more of an exploration of like, what do you want to do? What are you comfortable with?
A lot of this is influenced by Buddhism.
Yeah.
And my knowledge of Buddhism is surface at best, I think. Like
I don't even think I've touched the surface.
Well, it's a religion that's very much more philosophical. I think most Buddhists believe in gods but don't worship gods. They just think that they're another level of existence. Well, you could reincarnate into a god.
Actually, there is one thing I do know about Buddhism. If you build enough pagodas, no matter how evil you are in life, you can get to nirvana.
Yeah.
Shout out Burmese days.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't studied up on it, I definitely find Buddhism to be like a very because it's almost a philosophy more than a religion in some ways. And it seems to be one Aldous Huxley is based off reading Island is very attached to.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, dang, I should actually really study up on it. I don't think I I'm not religious. I don't imagine I'd subscribe to any religion, but I'm always curious to learn about different perspectives on the world and why, like the culture and belief and all that sort of stuff. And I find Buddhism in particular to be an extremely interesting one. And this book, is like, it's piqued my curiosity is what I'm saying.
For sure. One of the things we didn't talk about in the first video was this idea in Pala that there are two ways dictators come about. One is a Peter Pan type,
and the other is the muscle man type. The two prominent examples they use for dictators, which they talk about a lot throughout the books, is Hitler and Stalin.
Yes.
Hitler being a Peter Pan.
Someone who never grew up and is sort of this spoiled child who gets into power.
And then the muscle man is Stalin.
And
he's like an ambitious, like, person that needs to, like, feel
dominant and so part of the education system in Pala is to identify the musclemen and the Peter Pans and get them to focus those tendencies in positive ways. So, like, Cecilla's husband, who has recently died in a rock climbing accident, was a muscle man. And part of the reason that he focused on the rock climbing and why that was encouraged was because it was a positive way for him to get that physical drive expressed. And he dies as a result of that. And Cecilla herself says, yes, it's sad, and I feel a loss that he died, but if those tendencies hadn't been curbed by him doing that, what if he had become a criminal or a murderer or like, tried to take over the island and gain power? Like, the fact that he died young was terrible, but the other possible consequences would be worse. Do I buy it?
No, it's ridiculous. I straight up think it's a ridiculous idea. I guess there's some truths to it. I don't like.
I think I buy the Peter Pan more than the Muscle Man.
Oh yeah, I buy the Peter Pan more than the Muscle Man. I think though that I think there's definitely an element of like nurture, how people are raised and all that. But I don't know. I think there's something off about this explanation. But
I think that typing people that specifically so that there's only two types of dictators in the world, and that's all you have to watch out for. And
that's also ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, what do you think the Raj is supposed to represent? The Muscle Man or the Peter Pan?
Peter Pan.
Peter Pan?
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
You agree? Yeah. Definitely. I was trying to think of some way I could put up an explanation for how he represents both at the same time, but no, he's just the Peter Pan.
I think the dictator
the
other island is the Muscle Man.
That's true. Yeah, the book, it constantly brings up capitalism, socialism, and communism, and like how they're all flawed, faulty systems and all that sort of stuff. But it's so weird because I felt like the book constantly gave an in-depth explanation of why capitalism's flawed, and then socialism's just thrown in. They don't really ever dive into criticisms of socialism like they do with capitalism. Yeah. And it's like...
I think the closest they get to that is when they talk about China, and because China, I think, had like a group parenting system forced on people, and where the children weren't even necessarily ever raised by their parents at a certain point. And that is brought up by Will, and they're like, no, that's not what our system is, and they like this is a bad system for other, for all of those reasons. But that isn't particularly socialist when you step away from it.
No, it's not. And I think either Huxley himself fell into this propaganda of like, how like with America, it's like, socialism is this like inherent, it's propagandized to be like this inherent like devil word. It feels
you mean like he wasn't critiquing socialism very much because it didn't need to, because it was obviously a bad thing?
Either he threw in socialism because he fell into that, and just kind of thought the stuff he was critiquing with capitalism applied to socialism too, even though it's like, no, not really. There is like a lot of people that would say like Stalin and Hitler are just two sides of the same coin, fascism and communism, one and the same. And it's like, not really.
I get the point those people are making, and I think one of the things is like, fascism is definitely fascism. Stalinism isn't really communism.
So that's one possibility, is that he fell into that, and that they're two sides of the same coin. So in critiquing capitalism, he's also critiquing socialism, or he has the sort of realization that because it's a boogeyman word, can't like get people thinking the idea that, oh, this is just socialist propaganda. So if he throws in stuff dissing socialism, then people won't think, this is socialism.
I mean, if I think about the society, I don't know how it isn't socialist.
Exactly. That's the point. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It is a pretty socialist society. So this is what I'm saying, is that the disses at socialism are thrown so that people can be like, yeah, this society that is socialism is a good idea, but it's not socialism, therefore it's not,
Yeah, that makes sense. I think why I have an problem with utopias in general is none of these ideas are tested, right? Like, he's making these arguments, and I don't believe that this would work. I don't buy that his education system is a better. I mean, there are definitely negatives to the education system we have, but I don't buy that his way of thinking necessarily would be better
or is practical.
Yeah.
I don't buy into the explanations of why a lot of this works, even though it's really interesting explanations and stuff. It's stuff that I'm just like, not too sure that's how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing, is it's really hard to come up with an ideal society because we are very much locked into a capitalist mindset of things.
I think it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
Like, we're evolved apes, right?
Yeah.
Like, the idea that we are capable of living in an ideal society, I think, might be a stretch. I don't think we are aware of how much of our behavior is instinctive and programmed into us.
I get what you're saying, but I think a lot of the instincts and programmed are developed through years of societal conditioning and all that sort of stuff, and propaganda and stuff. And that's why I'm saying, like, if we didn't have necessarily the system that we have, while we would still have instincts and stuff, they wouldn't be necessarily a lot of the same instinct.
I think for some of them that's true. For others, they would be the same, and there would be negative instincts that I don't think you can just ignore in the way humans are. Like,
what sort of stuff?
I think tendencies toward violence are innate in human beings. If you look at
we're hunter-gatherers.
We're hunter-gatherers. We are apes. If you look at our nearest relatives, except for the bonobos.
Chimpanzees are violent as hell.
Yeah, because we have a rational mind. We can rationalize our behavior, but I think a lot of times we rationalize our behavior
that isn't rational.
And we don't realize that we're not actually doing things for rational reasons.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you could build a society that would compensate for that. I think a society that isn't always trying to figure out how to be better isn't going to work.
Yeah.
I think utopia can't be right because there's always room for improvement. And
that is precisely, going full circle, why Oedipus and Paula does not work. The whole form of art is about, that's honestly probably why Island somewhat succeeds as a book. It's why Oedipus and Paula fails, because it's trying to look for the answers of how can we become better, and it pitches a bunch of ideas for how we can do this. It's almost more a philosophical text than a novel, like more comparable to like the Myth of Sisyphus or something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
And art is about the struggle, and if there is no struggle, there is no point. And you know what? And with what you're saying, and I completely agree with you, life is art. It is the struggle. That's what, when we find there's no such thing as happiness, we live on a life of high and lows, the ups and the downs, and you can't feel the ups without the downs, like a roller coaster,
Yeah.
One that doesn't move straight. I think even in an ideal society, it would include a constant struggle to achieve better results, to achieve a better society, because nothing can be perfect. And while we, can have theories and all that sort of stuff, perfection is almost boring.
Yeah.
The thing.
Yeah.
And, obviously that's not to say we want suffering. That is definitely not the case. We currently live in a terrible system, and I would much rather it be overthrown and that we live in a completely different type of society than the one we live in.
I think,
but when there is that look for improvement, that's how we get beauty.
Anything that claims to have all the answers is going to fail.
Yes.
And so as much as I enjoyed the book, I wouldn't look to Island as a philosophy for how to live. So we hope you enjoyed our Philosophy 101 class, and we'll probably get back to more novelty novels in the future.
I hope that didn't, drive you guys away from us, but, it's all just fun discussion here, lighthearted discussion. So please, talk about your philosophy on life.
Do you have a utopia? What would it be like? Let us know in the comments. Or do you agree with us that utopias are not at all feasible?
As comment, subscribe, all that jazz. See you in the next one.
See you soon.